Hey everyone, welcome to week 7 of the college football season. My name is Mike Browning. I'm the host of College Football Road Trip at cfbroadtrip.com. Just a reminder, I have put out a couple posts, one last week, one just a little bit earlier today, about my road trip through Montana, that although it's not really a college football road trip, it is a trip that I was able to take this year with me putting off my college football trips for the season. So go check it out, see all the amazing things I was able to do in Montana, some amazing things to see, some amazing places to eat. It was a lot of fun, and I'd love for you to go and check it out. With that said, last week was another crazy week in the college football season. Well, about that Red River rivalry between OU and Texas going to quadruple overtime, LSU losing a big game and dropping out of the polls this week as well. A&M finally getting a big win under Jimbo Fisher against Florida. With that said, there's one really huge game this week in the SEC that we'll get to at the end of today's picks. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and start going through our list for today. Our first game this week is going to be a Friday night game where number 14 BYU travels to Houston. BYU is a team that the first game of the year, they went to Navy, absolutely blew them out, had a couple big blowouts to start the season. Houston struggled a little bit to start the season, but has started getting the ball rolling as they've gone along. I think the ball is going to keep rolling for Houston. I think BYU is going to go in. I think they're going to be a little overconfident. I think Houston, now that they have things going, will be able to turn around and beat BYU this week. So I picked this to be a slight upset this week. Houston will beat 14th ranked BYU on Friday night. Next, let's go to an American game that I think will actually be one of the games of the week. We have number 8 Cincinnati traveling to unranked Tulsa. Tulsa is a team that played very competitive with top 10 ranked OSU and then turned around and beat UCF last week. Cincinnati has looked really good so far this season. I think this is a game that will actually be competitive throughout. I think it's going to go to the fourth quarter of play. But at the end, I think Cincinnati is a really strong team, and I think they will have a little too much in the end. I have 8th ranked Cincinnati winning over Tulsa. Next, let's go to an ACC matchup. We have Pittsburgh traveling to number 13th ranked Miami. Miami didn't fall quite as much as I thought they would after they lost to Clemson. Yes, Clemson is the number one ranked team in the country, but they basically had their way with Miami. I thought Miami would fall a little bit further. I still thought they'd be ranked, but not still up at 13. Pittsburgh has struggled a little bit this season. They've been close to that top 25 line, either above it or below it the last couple of weeks. I think Miami's going to be able to come off the loss to Clemson and turn things around this week. I think Miami will have a pretty easy time with it, honestly, especially once you get to the second half. So I have 13th ranked Miami winning over Pittsburgh in ACC play. Next, let's go to an SEC matchup. We have Kentucky traveling to number 18 Tennessee. Tennessee struggled pretty mightily against Georgia last week. I thought they'd be a little more competitive than they were. On the flip side, Kentucky had their first really strong outing of the season against Mississippi State last week. They looked great throughout. The question is Tennessee real or not? Did the Georgia game expose them, or are they still going to be competitive for that SEC East? I think Tennessee is a legit team this year. I think Kentucky will keep it strong and competitive throughout, but I think Tennessee will have just a little too much in the end, especially at home, to be able to pull out this game. I have 18th ranked Tennessee winning over Kentucky in SEC. Next, let's go to Army. Army is traveling to UTSA, Texas San Antonio this week. Army really struggled against the Citadel of all teams last week. They had to hold them off in the end to just pull out that victory. UTSA is a team that's been pretty competitive in all of their games this week. The question is always, will that Army triple option play be able to give the team that they're playing fits or not? I think they will give UTSA some fits. I think Army will find enough to be able to pull out this win. I have Army traveling on the road and winning at UTSA. Next, let's go to another ACC matchup. We have Louisville traveling to number 4 Notre Dame. Notre Dame struggled a little more than I expected they would against Florida State last week, but they were able to pull away in the fourth quarter. And I think that's kind of what's going to happen this week as well. Teams like to play their best against Notre Dame. Notre Dame usually struggles in the first half of games and then finds a way to pull it out in the third to fourth quarter. That's going to happen again this week. Notre Dame will win. It will be close, but they will win over Louisville in ACC play this week. Next, let's go to another American matchup. We have UCF traveling to Memphis. I already talked about UCF's loss to Tulsa earlier in this video. I think that Memphis is going to be able to do the same thing that Tulsa did. It will be close throughout. They'll be able to find a way in the second half to pull away. UCF just isn't the same team that they were a couple years ago when they were undefeated and claiming a false national championship. I think Memphis is going to have to turn things around, and I think that starts this week. Memphis will win at home against UCF in American Conference play. Next, let's go back to the SEC. We have Ole Miss traveling to Arkansas in another game that I think could compete for Game of the Week. We saw how competitive Ole Miss was against Alabama last week. They were able to score and score often against an Alabama defense that's supposed to be really good. Arkansas on the flip side looked really good against Auburn. They probably should have won that game if not for a Auburn fumble that turned out not to be a fumble because they called it a spike when it really should have been a backwards pass. That stopped Arkansas from winning the game. So the question is, what team coming off a devastating loss is going to be able to turn around and pull out the win this week? And I think it's going to be Ole Miss. Ole Miss looked really good against an Alabama team. Arkansas, as I mentioned last week, is so much better. They're competitive every week. They're just not to the point of being able to pull it over the finish line, and I think the same thing is going to happen this week. I have Ole Miss traveling to Arkansas and pulling out the win there in SEC play. Next, let's go to an ACC matchup that I think will be very competitive. We have Boston College traveling to 23rd ranked Virginia Tech. Both of these teams are 3-1. Both of them look really good in all of their matchups so far. In this type of matchup, I usually go with the home team, even though the home advantage isn't quite the same this year. In this one, Virginia Tech is the home team. Because of that, I think they have the advantage. I have 23rd ranked Virginia Tech winning over Boston College. Now let's go to the matchup of the week, the matchup of the year so far, I would say. We have number 3 Georgia traveling to number 2 ranked Alabama, matchup of top 3 teams. We all know that Nick Saban was diagnosed with COVID this week, so he will not be coaching this game from the sidelines. I think that will make a difference in this game. Alabama, as already said, barely pulled out the win against Ole Miss. On the flip side, Georgia has been pretty dominant in all of their matchups so far. Tennessee was competitive with them for a half, but then they just pulled away in the end. In the end, I think Georgia has more to play for, both in the SEC department as well as in the pride department. Georgia really wants to win and show that they are a team to reckon with in the SEC. Alabama has their excuse already written in if they lose this game with Nick Saban being there. So because of that, Georgia, I think, has all the momentum. I think Georgia is going to be able to pull off this win. I have number 3 Georgia winning over number 2 Alabama in SEC play. This will be a great game. Go check it out. Lots of great matchups this week. Go check them out. Enjoy the games. Again, go check out my blog on my website about my trip to Montana at cfbroadtrip.com. We will talk to you again next week.